Hey y'all, so I'm going to take you on a walk with me this evening. So I just filmed for about an hour Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. And yeah, y'all know I got a new mic, right? So I just assumed the settings on my mic were the same as the last time, and they were not. So essentially, hang on, I feel like I'm right in y'all's face. It's a little better. So essentially, the echo was turned up, and I don't care for it. I don't care for the sound of it. And I didn't do a mic check like I should have, so that's my bad. But I just assumed it was the same as I had left it, and I don't know if it got bumped or what happened, but I'll probably upload that video anyway in my random playlist. I have I forget what it's called. I'll drop it down in the description. I think I put it I named it something like random or musings or something. But I'll drop that for you all because it gives all the details. But I'm going to give you guys a summary of the story. And my phone's down to like 15 or 16% now. So I'm essentially challenging myself, and I'm excited to do that because I've just learned that it's kind of good to break pattern and do things outside of the norm. It forces you to think outside of the box and try things differently, and I just think it's good for you. So that's what I'm doing. So the summary of Much Ado About Nothing is this. So there's these two young ladies, Hero and Beatrice. Hero is very serious. She's described as just having that kind of personality. Beatrice is the opposite. She's very just kind of lighthearted, and she likes to make a lot of jests. It says she's always joking and just having fun and all this. Okay, so Hero is the daughter of Leonardo, right? We know that Leonardo has the root Leo and is related to the lion, and also very much archetypally represents the king, right? Okay, so in the story, there are these young men who come back into town, Messina, right? Because Leonardo is the governor of Messina, Hero's dad. So these young men come back into town from war. Okay, so you have the Prince of Aragon, who is Don Pedro. And we know that Pedro is from the Hebrew name Peter, meaning rock. Okay, and then we have Claudio, who is described much like Beatrice. He's very serious and just kind of reserved. And then we have Benedict. Benedict is very much like Hero. Like Beatrice. So he's just very witty and joking, and in fact, he kind of engages in a ongoing debate with Beatrice. So you have Beatrice and Benedict, and they're kind of like going back and forth at each other, like taking jabs, but just kind of in a joking manner, but very cutting too. So they kind of have this kind of going on between the two of them. And then while this is happening, okay, because the guys just came into town, Claudio is really kind of focused on Hero, and he's starting to have feelings for her and everything. Okay, so he starts talking to, if I'm not mistaken, Leonardo, and sharing that, hey, look at Beatrice and Benedict, they ought to get together or whatnot. Well, it's proposed to Claudio, like, well, yeah, but you've got your eye over here on Hero. So he's like, yeah, I do. So he discusses this with her dad, with Leonardo, and he's like, yeah, you totally, you have my, it's not permission. You have, he's good with it. He's good with it. So he is excited to marry Hero. Well, what happens is he doesn't want to wait. It says he's described as being impatient. So he devises the scheme to set up a situation where there's a discussion acted out and it's within the vicinity of Benedict. And so the friends act this out, this whole discussion, talking about Beatrice. They're just making this up. And they're saying, she's in love with Benedict. And which is, again, totally fabricated. Well, he hears this and he's like, oh, really? So, meanwhile, or right after that, you have Beatrice's cousin, Hero, and she does the same thing to Beatrice. So she gets some of her friends together and they do the same thing to Beatrice, and they want her to overhear that Benedict is in love with her. Okay, so what happens from here is there's a brother of Don Pedro, okay, and his name is Don John, and he really despises his brother, and because his brother is friends with Claudio, he doesn't want Claudio to be happy and to marry Hero, and he doesn't want anybody to be happy. He's described as being discontented. And so what happens is he hires this other guy, Borrachio, to work with one of Hero's acquaintances, okay? And her name's Margaret. So they work together to put on this show for Claudio to see. And this is happening the night before Claudio and Hero are supposed to get married. And then Claudio is told, like, hey, we think that Hero is talking to men, at night, and from her window. And hey, let's go, kind of set up camp and watch her, and catch her. And he's like, well, if this is true, then I'm still going to the wedding, and instead of getting married to her, I'm going to shame her in front of everybody, in front of the whole congregation. So this is what happens. But remember, this is just an act, So Claudio goes, and he sees what he believes to be Hero, but really it's Margaret wearing her clothes because Hero's already gone to sleep. She's got a big day the next day, get married. So she's gone to sleep. But Margaret puts on her clothes and pretends to be her because I guess Claudio's watching from a distance and he thinks it's really her. Okay. So from here, he's convinced. So the next day at his wedding, he shames her in front of everybody and accuses her of what he thinks he saw. Okay. So she faints, and pretty much everybody leaves. Well, from this point, her dad even believes that she's guilty. Leonardo believes she's guilty. And so this is where we have this important character that we see in a lot of these stories. And in this particular story, he's the Friar. And he actually is just closely observing Hero, and he sees that she's innocent. He discerns that she's innocent. And so he devises a scheme to fool Claudio into thinking that she died because she passed out. She fainted. And then he left. He was so mad. So he convinces Leonardo, her father, to put up this monument or memorial or whatever, and to go through with all this stuff, making everybody think that she's dead. And so everybody believes it. So Beatrice is mad because she thinks she's innocent. This is her cousin and good friend, and she's trying her best to convince Benedict to kill Claudio for shaming her and killing her from shame in front of everybody. And he's like, I'm not going to go kill him. And so, but he does agree to challenge him to a duel, to a fight. And so, and what the Friar tells Leonardo that will happen from faking everybody off, thinking she's died, he tells him that this will essentially test the love of Claudio. If he really loves this woman, then he's going to feel guilty for shaming her in front of everybody. And it'll just be a great test of his love, right? And he'll also really kind of be forced to think about, is this really true? You know, what I know of her and her character, you know, would she really do this? So it's a test. Okay. So sure enough, he's told that she died, or he finds out, you know, it looks like that she died, and he's devastated. He's devastated. Instead of just still being mad, see, instead of this just being a personal offense and he's passing it off or whatever, he's really devastated about it, and I can't remember if it says that it caused him to reconsider and he thinks she's in this. I think it did. I think it did make him reconsider and think about it deeply, spend some time, you know, thinking about it and determining that this can't be true, you know. But he loves her, and he feels really sorry for shaming her, and he apologizes to her father, and he's like, what can I do? And Leonardo's like, well, you know, you can make it right by marrying her cousin, Hero's other cousin, not Beatrice, but another cousin that looks a lot like her. And he's like, hey, if that's what I need to do to make things right, that's what I'll do. So he goes to marry this other cousin, even though his heart's very heavy, and he spent like the night before this wedding like crying all night and upset and everything. Okay, so when he gets to the chapel, the bride is in a mask, and it's quickly revealed that it's actually Hero herself. Okay, so it's a happy ending. She's really alive. They're reconciled. The guys that were responsible for it, Borrachio, and then the one that planned the whole thing, Don John, they were essentially found out, and one of them confessed and all this stuff, right? And then in the end, it also came out that Beatrice and Benedict were set up, you know, that they were told that the other one was really in love with them, but really they weren't. But by that point, it was really cool how the book explained it, but it was kind of like saying that true love came from falsehood. You know, they were lied to and made to believe that they loved one another, but it really actually wound up happening. So it's just really kind of a neat story and a lot of fun, but there's a lot of details to it. And I recorded the whole thing with an echo. So if you want to listen to it, it's going to be in this playlist, and I'll drop a link in the description. You can watch it. But I guess it kind of sounds like I'm in an auditorium, which is okay. But it's just not, I don't know that I want to listen to it. So there's the short of it. And my big takeaway, I'll share that with you all too. Because in the longer video I made, I went into looking at the symbolism of all the names and evaluating the characters. I read a good portion of the story to you all and all that. But my takeaway is this. You know, in a lot of these fairy tales, there's helper characters that typically serve a role of advising one of the main characters, if not the main character, and even not just advising, but helping the main character in some way. And instead of it being an angel in this instance, or a fairy, or an elf, or a spirit, or something like that, it was a friar. And I thought that was cool. That was a little bit of a twist, you know, something different we haven't seen in some of the other stories I've shared with you all. But he advises Leonardo, you know, to go to fake everybody off and for good. So the other thing that was interesting to me, so that was a helper character. And, you know, if you think about it, he was a trickster. The friar, he was a trickster. He tricked everybody into thinking that Hero had died, but yet it was for good. And then you had Don Juan, who represents the bad side of things, right? The malicious character, the villain. He was also a trickster, and he tricked everybody into thinking that Hero, you know, was was not committed to Claudio and a woman of virtue when really she was. So you have these two characters that are tricksters. And the way I was able to make sense of the story is everybody fit an archetypal character as a couple in this story. So you had Hero and Claudio, who were both described. Claudio's name means lame or weak or broken, and so I also view that as not prepared, you know, because remember it described him as impatient, and he had to do something to try and fill the time because he was so impatient to marry Hero. That encouraged him to devise the scheme to set up Beatrice and Benedict to fall in love with each other, you know. He was a part of that scheme. So there's all these schemes, there's all of this gossip, and the shows, the false shows that are put on and watched. And but Hero and Claudio are just kind of reserved, and they represent to me the immature hero on the hero's journey, you know, who has yet to embark on the journey. And then, of course, as things progress, it's like all of this drama goes down, which is, you know, where we get the name of the story, Much Ado About Nothing, you know, which ado is representative of just quarrels and strife and fuss and all this stuff, you know, that goes down. And it's usually over nothing, just like the title suggests. And so all this stuff has to go down to mature the archetypal representation of the hero on the hero's journey, which is embodied in the characters both of Hero and Claudio, right? And so this is where you pull in the villain and the trickster archetype, which is embodied by another duo, you know, the Friar and Don Juan. One's good, one's bad, which is kind of the nature of the trickster archetype. Typically and it's in one character normally in these stories, but there's a good side and a bad side. You can kind of see good qualities and bad qualities in these characters. And in this story, I think it's just split into two actual characters, right? But, and then we have Beatrice and Benedict, who in the beginning were really genuinely irritated at one another. They would challenge one another and go back and forth and debate, you know, with their jabs at one another. But in the end, that was brought back into play, you know, but they loved one another. So they kept that aspect, that childlike, fun, lighthearted, jovial, joking kind of nature, but they had matured into being able to love one another as well. And I think that, and then ironically at that same time, Hero and Claudio were reconciled and ready to be married, you see, after they had gone through, you know, all of these tests, the tests of love, to test love and to mature and grow love. So it's kind of, if you look at all the characters again as different aspects of one's own psyche, you can kind of see how it really does fit the mold of the hero's journey once again. So, and I love the unique characters too. And I love the fact too that there's a lot of the theme of brotherhood all throughout the story. You have, you know, a friar is typically a part of a spiritual group, you know, a brotherhood. And then you have the brotherhood of the guys who were friends coming back from war. And then you had, you know, Don Pedro and Don John who were brothers. And so there's a lot of a good representation of that theme of brotherhood too, which is really interesting. And so if you just wanted to do a deep dive and go down that rabbit hole and see, you know, what all that might reveal to you, it's just another layer, you know, of revelation, you know, lessons, things we can pull from the story. You could do that. But I hope you enjoyed my very quick summary of it. The full video, I'll upload it soon and I'll link it down in the description, but it'll just kind of be not listed. It'll just be in that playlist that's only available if you have the link to click if you want to listen to it with the echo. I'm sorry. I have to learn. This is my new microphone, and I have to learn how to test it and do a mic check, you know, pretty early on with myself. And so again, I hope you enjoyed this, and I thank you for listening. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon. So here's my solar lights, one strand, and then over here I have my other strand. So the question is, are they ghost lights, or do I just need to readjust the solar panel away from all the tree branches so the sun can actually hit it? I don't know. Maybe they're actually ghost lights. Yeah.